So today in the house, we are very happy to have the Managing Director of Allianz Partners India. Welcome, Charu, and so happy to have you here.
The world is now changed, I think, from a diversity perspective. It's a great place. But if I look at my journey, as a woman, I will do it by myself. There's simply no need. So be kind to yourself and get yourself a good support system.
Is it guilt or exhaustion that kills?
Oh my God, that's a tough one. So I think none of them kills me. But if I were to rank the two, I mean, I can say that break was also a turning point because you realize that there is so much more to life. But I really think it's worth it that you value people for the people they are.
Charu, what is your message for women aspirants, career aspirants across age? So today in the house, we are very happy to have yet another seasoned consumer finance veteran, spent many years in the consumer finance business, and after which he made a very conscious shift to the insurance value-added services, and currently is the Managing Director of Allianz Partners India. Welcome, Charu, and so happy to have you here talking to us in this initiative.
So thank you so much for having me, Vilasini. It's entirely my pleasure to be here. So thanks for having me, and I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah. Charu, I kept the introduction brief, hoping that you could take us through your journey briefly, and then, we go back to the format that we generally follow.
Of course. I've now been working for 27 years, and it's been a good journey. Both personally and professionally. So I think I'm filled with gratitude that I've had such a good journey, and it's obviously possible because you get a lot of support from the entire ecosystem around you.
Yeah.
I started working at 22 after my MBA, and that's what we used to do in those years, right? You do your graduation, then your post-graduation, and then you would start working, right?
Yeah.
So I had a similar journey. I just finished 10 years in Allianz Partners India. So, of course, it's a firm very close to my heart. I love working there. And over the years, I worked in consumer finance, in retail, in insurance, and now in insurance plus assistance.
And building grounds up is a strength and trait that clearly comes up in your journey, which we will possibly talk.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes it fun, I think, when you create a value and you're able to have a positive impact. Yes.
True. So, Charu, where did you grow up? How was childhood? Where did you grow up?
So, I'm a Delhi person, fully. Okay. So, I grew up in Delhi. I'm born and brought up in Delhi, and a typical middle-class upbringing. So both my parents have been working forever, right? So as kids, you have a view on your parents and you see your parents. So my mom and dad have always were always working. So and we are three sisters. I'm the middle one, and we can have a separate conversation on the merits and demerits of being the middle one. But yes, I'm the middle sister.
Okay, I have to make a point there, but after you,
So. And I've also been fortunate that I grew up in Delhi. Also, our childhood was like a regular mix, and I had the fortune of going to Lady Shri Ram College.
Yeah.
And in our family, incidentally, there are three of us who've gone to Lady Shri Ram.
So all three of you?
No, me, my mom, and my elder sister. The younger one also did economics. She went to Miranda. So we've all, sort of, three of us did economics. So there is some sort of pattern there, right? So it was good. LSR as a college, of course, is really
as
very
competitive as it is today to get in those times.
I think it wasn't that competitive now when I look at it. I mean, if you were to prorate the marks of then and now, still I don't think we reach a 99.9. But those were easier times, of course.
But still, they would have. I mean, you would have cut.
Of course, you have to. LSR being LSR, you have to be at a certain level to go there, but not a great college. Not as competitive, I would say. Now I think it's tougher for the children. We all had a simpler
Way simpler.
childhood, teens. I think we didn't have so much distraction
Yeah.
and so many variables, right? It was
Yeah.
simpler.
Yeah.
So college was LSR, and that was also in Delhi. I was a day scholar, and it was a good
memory
3
from
years.
that period.
Favorite memory from that period. So I think because I was in economics, it was the more serious part of the college, economics, and we had so the friends. I think hanging out in the lawns at the cafeteria, as well as of course we would go out once in a while. I had a journey from my house to LSR because I chose to go to South Campus. So at that time there used to be a youth special. So even your youth special friends are very special. So yeah,
Youth special was the commute.
the commute, but yeah, the bus was called youth special. It was a dedicated youth special.
see in Chennai, where.
So it's similar to that, right? So I think it was a nice period. All 3 years, it was good fun.
Charu, you also happen to be the third speaker in this series, where you're part of being 3 sisters.
Oh my God.
There's some magic with leadership and 3 sisters and motivating each other, I think, over there.
I think that's a lovely coincidence. But of course, you do inspire each other. Both my sisters are role models for me. Achievers and amazing humans, right? So I think they absolutely inspire me to do more, to be better. And for all 3 of us, of course, I would say our parents have been our biggest inspiration, because you really take your work ethic, the kind of human you turn out to be, really from your family. Because that's what you imbibe in your growing up years. And I think eventually you are, if not an image, definitely a shadow of your parents. So true. We've been very, very blessed. I have to say that we've been very blessed. And I obviously, the 3 of us are very close, and we inspire each other.
Yeah, beautiful. So you got placed at Arvind Mills.
Yes.
After MBA.
Yes.
And how Arvind Mills, and any thought process in that, or
so it's just regular campus placement, right? And you sit for your interviews, and again, there was no day 0 then. Luckily, it was only day 1.
Okay.
So you sat through some interviews, and I was very happy because Arvind was day 1 on campus.
Right.
And again, you wouldn't. I would never overthink too much, right? So Arvind Mills, when I finally joined, it turned out to be a treat, because it was we had a large
building out something in Odisha.
Yeah. So I'll come to that, right?
Yeah.
So there was a large management trainee batch, and Arvind took very good care of everybody. Arvind Mills, they had just put up a denim plant, and some people so everyone had to work around denim, let's put it that way. And again, from there, I was because I was in marketing, I went to Kolkata, from where I was handling Odisha market, and I was like 22 and a half and a girl.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And my parents were like, seriously, this is what you really want to do? I'm like, yeah. And hats off to them that they were so chill, and they were okay with it.
No questions asked.
No questions asked, but a lot of advice given.
Okay.
That listen, you're doing this, but you better be very careful. That again was like the beginning of the retail sales bug, if I may say that, right? Because at that time they had these very interesting rough and tough denim, ready to stitch jeans.
And before that, you wouldn't even get jeans made out of India, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would.
Some aunt or uncle went abroad and got you some denim.
There were some brands, but this was this innovative thing that why don't you stitch it up, right?
Yeah.
And
Fascinating.
It was fascinating to sell it. It was very interesting to sell it in Odisha. But I think I've always enjoyed the challenge that comes my way. And again, because it was a management trainee batch, you had a sales stint, you had a marketing stint. So after maybe I think 8-9 months, I was back in Ahmedabad where I did a marketing stint, and I did I think 1.5 years with Arvind. But again, because it was a large batch, we again made some very good relationships. I have some friends from Arvind who I'm still in touch with, and
Wow.
I made some very good friends at Arvind. So
Right.
it was again a good experience. Your first job, it matters a lot.
Yeah.
So it remains close to your heart.
Yeah.
Ahmedabad as a city is awesome.
Yeah.
And again, it was my first time really out of house, because even IMT Ghaziabad was still like 2 hours away.
Right.
And you got this amazing support. We were like 6 girls living in a house. And that time, Chambaris was still live.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of bonding and fun.
Yeah.
And of course, we worked hard, but we enjoyed ourselves as well. So it was good.
Can you talk to me little about your sales stint at Arvind? What exactly did you have to do?
So there it was really propagation of the product, right? And typically you would have a distributor or a dealer that you would go to. So I had, places like Bhubaneswar, Cuttack. There was, I think there was one more place there. I'm trying to remember the name now. Of course, there was Rourkela and Sambalpur, right? So my bad. So these were the 4 places I would typically visit. And you would speak with the dealer or the distributor and say, why don't you push this? Once in a while, they'd say, listen, why don't you come to the retailer with us and talk about it? So when you do that on the ground, it gives you a very different level of confidence. And it's sort of, you get rid of whatever inhibitions you have. And I think it's really important for women to do that.
Yeah.
It's very good learning. It's practical experience. And it sort of teaches you how to deal with people. It is also very humbling because, you're out there selling this, and for you, it's very important to make it work. Right? It's a job that's been given to you. You want to do it well.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you're doing it, you're actually learning a lot. Because you will not get that kind of learning anywhere. Just imagine in those days, going to Cuttack. And of course, the good thing is you realize how beautiful our country is, right?
Yeah.
So the sales stint itself, if I come back to it, I think it's very empowering.
You say humbling.
Yeah.
There is rejections on the ground. People don't want to. Is that?
Of course, yeah. So there are rejections, but more than that, it's a tough one, right?
It's a tough one.
And many times the product might be very good. You don't know how many people are willing to adopt it, right? And you have to meet a lot of people to convince a lot of people. It doesn't sort of, it's not an easy sell. And it teaches you a lot. It is humbling because you would have never done that. And nobody's said no to you on your face for anything. When you do this, you realize that in reality, in life, people can say no for big and small things, right? And it's just, I think, consciously or maybe unconsciously, you are learning to, and you're getting prepared.
Yeah, a much larger.
Yeah. So I think it was good in that sense. Yeah.
And it also gives you a sense of nimbleness, right? You pack your bag and go out tomorrow. So
it sort of makes you a sort of a risk taker. Because you're out of your comfort zone for sure. And you're trying out new things. So whatever the management books teach you, you're actually doing that on the ground. And it's never easy to face strangers. So that's the other thing it does for you, right? You're on your own doing the travel. And in those days, I don't even remember when mobiles were introduced, but I definitely know that at that time they weren't there. But maybe in 1999.
And train travel.
And train travel, yeah. So it's good. It also realizes that you are coming from a place of privilege.
Right.
That in itself, I think, makes you more responsible. That, if you've been given this privilege, you should use it in whatever manner to create value and to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Because I think working in new locations, even traveling for work, in a sales job or even otherwise, it's a lot of learning. So the exposure is different when you relocate, and there is a lot of exposure even when you're traveling from your base location to other locations.
Right.
And way back in the 90s, there was a lot of traveling involved for everybody.
Right.
And I think it worked well for me. And I was actually happy
You
with the
enjoyed
choice. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Right? Because after doing all your sales, you go back home and you're back in a lot of comfort. And
Yeah.
then you pick up your bag and then go again for the next 4 days. So it worked beautifully, I think.
That's one very fascinating aspect about your, it's an entirely field sales, hardcore sales and marketing stint that you have consciously chosen also and built along with it.
Yeah, I think I began to enjoy it, right? And Perfetti made a huge difference. I mean, it was confectionery that we were selling.
Right.
That's where I think I really learned a lot of ground sales, right?
Yeah.
And nothing like an FMCG
To kind of give you those
really
basics.
get these ropes. And it was interesting. It was very interesting.
So when all of this was happening, Charu, of course, you mentioned your the way you look up to your sisters and the way you look up to your parents and how much influence they must have had.
Yeah.
Any external mentors, anybody you would talk to when you had to make a move?
Yes, absolutely. I think over the years you have these people that you work with. So for me, my mentors have really been people mostly in the workplace. So of course there is family, right? And I'm very blessed that my family has a lot of professionals, right? So I would go to them. From my workspace over the years, I've had, in fact, a lot of senior women who've mentored me, but a lot of male bosses who've been extremely good mentors and a very positive influence, right? So my personal belief is that you can learn from everybody.
Right.
And mentoring is special. So if you have that connect with the person, and that comes over time, right? You have to see how the work ethic matches, what is their response at times of crisis or even in difficult times, right? So I've been very blessed, and the world is now changed. I think from a diversity perspective, it's a great place. Corporate world is a great place. But if I look at my journey, I've had support from a lot of people, and as they say, it takes a village to make anyone succeed.
Yeah,
I've had a lot of people over the years, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because without that, it's very difficult to do this journey.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think at every stage, we've had multiple people support us.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, Charu, what would you consider a turning point in your career? Or turning point?
Okay, I think that's a good question. I have to really think hard on that one. There will be turning points, I think, right? So if I look at my Citi stint, I was with Citi Financial, which was the consumer finance arm of Citigroup for almost 9 years, 8 months, right? Almost I finished 10 years there. So, it started as, again, there was a company called APCO. APCO became associates, and then it became Citi Financial, right?
Right.
So within that 9.5 year space, there were many, many turning points, right? I think every time you move from one role to another in terms of scale, it is a turning point. And it's like a pivot. Not a major pivot, but it is still a pivot. So you have to assess yourself and see how are you going to make yourself succeed in this. One of the key ones was, of course, when I started heading the entire personal loan business, right? And that happened, I remember, in 2006. So your scale changes from running one large zone to running the entire business.
Country business. Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's tough. It's a whole lot of learning. So those stages, I think you're able to really hold on to those, deliver, again through hard work as well as support from a lot of people. You have to apply yourself a lot, right? So I think one turning point was that. There was another one when, of course, I moved out of Citi and I took a break, then I joined another firm, which was a different format altogether, right? So that was a turning point because you're used to working in a different setup, and then you go to a new setup, especially if you've done 9.5 years in a place.
Yeah.
You go to another setup, you have to again, it's definitely a
Remodeling
pivot.
your mind,
You have to change the way you think and operate.
approach, everything.
And we are hardwired also to make things work,
Yes.
because you, in your mind, you feel that you have ownership for a certain deliverable, and you must give it your best and deliver it.
Yeah.
So that was another career pivot, I think, right? And then, of course, I moved to Allianz Partners. So I've been here for 10 years. So when I moved here as the chief sales officer, then I became the CEO in December 2019. So that was another pivot for me. And that was immediately followed by COVID in March 2020. So the multiple places, right? And maybe they're not turning points, but they expect a response, or you have to have a response that enables you to deliver. So there, the most important thing is self-belief. And you have first and foremost believe in yourself that you can make it happen, because there'll be a lot of clutter, there'll be a lot of noise, negative and positive, right? So you seek the positive and you stick to it. And then you put your head down and work hard. And of course, you have to, it's not just hard work. You have to apply yourself. You have to seek support. And during all my turning points, the other thing that helped me is my family, right? Because while my parents have always been there, my sisters have been there, their families, their spouses, my own family, as in, my in-laws who stayed with us like forever. Unfortunately, in the last, over the last 4 years, they passed away, but they were with us throughout.
Oh.
And that is again a huge, base support system. And there's like, it just, takes care of so many things, and you have, you're not really, down on anything, because you know that when you go back home also, as a family, you have this huge support and love.
I know.
So that makes a big difference. And I've actually, after my marriage, I've lived in a joint family, and it worked beautifully.
Okay.
So, and the kids were lucky because they were blessed to have their grandparents around for the longest.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so wonderful. I love the term pivots, Charu. I think, we always think of, like the word I used, right? Turning points or some, but pivots is gentler.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think, what is very nice that you identified is that we need to do that incremental to fit into that next role or the next goalpost that has been entrusted on us. And of course, you have the family backing and the support. So, you're in a good place to go out there and give it your all.
Yeah.
So how would you, and you made a very, very valid point on removing the clutter and focusing on the positives and all that. Yeah. So every incrementally, how does a resource approach this pivot? How does that, how do we get equipped to handle the pivot?
Okay. So I think it's an important one, right? First is that you have to be willing to learn. And your learnability quotient, as they call it now, has to be high. So one is learning. Second is having an open mind, because you have to absorb learning like a sponge. If you have this whole thing in your mind that, this is really not for me, many times you have to actually go down to really get up. You have to get into details, and you have to do it in a very nice way, right? It can't be too intrusive also, but you need to get to know your job. So you call it upskilling, or you call it reskilling, you call it cross-skilling. You have to build that knowledge, and you have to build that skill base. And it changes, right? Level after level, there's something incremental you have to pick up, and maybe you have to drop something.
You have to
So being aware and conscious of what it is, and again learning from your seniors. I mean, if I look at Allianz Partners, I think we've got a lot of mentorship programs, and we have a lot of active learning. What that does for you is that you can dip into this huge talent pool and reach out and say, listen, I want to learn this, I need your coaching and mentoring input on this. So you're able to navigate change more easily. And this became true for everybody, right? Irrespective of the role or organization. The biggest disruption was COVID, right?
Yeah.
And everyone learned to work differently.
Right.
So I think having that attitude to learn and being resilient is important. That's what makes you resilient, I think.
So the first 100 days in every pivot, will that?
I think it's overrated. Okay,
It's overrated?
I think it's overrated.
Okay.
See, because what happens is that the first 100 days, it depends on the role, right? If the role is a major pivot, 100 days, you're just sort of understanding what you've got to do.
Yeah.
So people should be careful. They should not put this pressure on themselves.
Ease into it.
Yeah, you should ease into it. And it also depends on the situation, right? So if the situation demands that, you do this 30, 60, 90, then you should. Otherwise, you don't want to get into a role and put pressure on everyone that, what, after 100 days, I want to look really good. So I think we have to use it only if it adds value and the situation demands it. So because 100 days is really short term.
Yeah. So you touched upon City, Charu, and in that, I think for more than 9.5 years, every 2 years, so
Almost, yeah.
You got the next responsibility, next pivot, and the growth was quite linear, I would think. What was your one very proud moment when you built up this franchise?
I think it was the people and the just connecting with the people, because it was a huge scale, right? There were 450 branches across the country and a very large team.
Yeah.
So I think the scale up and the people both. Because when you're starting with a handful and then you slowly become part of the growth, that is very exciting.
And what would your personal mantra to that be? I mean, on the business side, on the scale, and on
I think
it
would be on the people. I would say it would be that have genuine connects and care for people. I mean, as
how do you do it, Charu? I mean, how do
I do it? I think I am very authentic.
Okay.
So that is one way to do it, and I would typically reach out to people and connect at all levels. It's a lot of effort, right? But I really think it's worth it that you value people for the people they are. So I've somehow always been a people's person. I think if your people are happy and they feel connected to what you do, you will be a better organization. So it's a lot of effort in connecting. But I think it's important because as a leader, if you do that, other people see merit in it.
Right.
So then that bit is important. Other than that, focus. You have to focus on whatever makes you succeed in a job. It could be learning. It could be becoming technically excellent. It could be just, staying ahead in terms of upskilling.
Again, I'm going to ask you, how do you stay ahead?
How do you stay ahead? That's a tough one, right? I think one is to be aware, which is now that I've now been working for like 27 years. So to stay ahead, you have to be aware of what is changing in the environment. What are the key levers of your business, and you need to be able to see the subtle changes that are coming in. Some are very obvious, right? But somewhere you have to be deeply connected to your own standing as an organization, right? You need to know what you're doing right and what you're not doing right.
Right.
for that, having a connect on the core business in terms of deliverables is extremely important, and you will get a lot of that from reports, obviously,
Right.
but you will get a lot of that by client touch. So meeting up with clients and knowing what is happening, what is their feedback, listening is very important, and listening to everything, whether it is your key stakeholders internally and externally, grasping whatever information you get through a lot of tools that we have today, a lot of analytics, and the teams, right? The teams you work with. So we have a lot of connects with our teams at all levels to also hear what the numbers don't tell you. So I think it's a mix of various things. It's difficult to sort of articulate it, right? But
It comes with experience, but I think, keeping what I take away is like keeping your ear to the ground.
yes,
Being connected to that last mile,
absolutely. So you are doing it much better. Absolutely.
and picking up the vibe and the
Hmm.
trends
Yes.
comes very important
Yes.
as you scale. Right. So, Kriti, so that city happened, and then I noted that you took a break.
Yes.
2008.
Yes, I did. So 2008, I took a break for 18 months, in fact. So this was, I think, August 2008. And then I went back to work in Feb 2010. So I was having my daughter, my second child. And I was very clear that I personally want to take a break. I hadn't taken a break when my son was born. It was a 3-month mat leave at that time. Yeah, because that time the mat leave was 3 months. And you would typically just do the mat leave, right?
Yeah.
So I was very clear that I want to spend time with my son also till my daughter arrives. And I had a great time taking care of her. So when I went back to work, she was I think 12 months at that time. Yeah, 1 year old. Yeah, a little more than 1 year. I think she was 14 months at that time. Yeah, so it was nice.
From a podcast perspective, I was very excited to see the break, honestly, because I feel this is something, at least when we're talking about the women angle to it, I think it becomes so important to address some of these things because the biological cycle, the orientation, and our own personal choices. There are many times we want to take that break, but there is also the perception that if I take this break, it's going to impact my growth, it's going to impact my career.
Yeah.
So we push ourselves often not to even listen to ourselves, not to listen to our inner selves. So how did that decision come, and what do you think about the break today in hindsight?
I think it was a great thing. I did just the right thing, I feel. At that time, you're still in two minds. But
it couldn't have been easy.
It wasn't very easy, but somewhere I knew that I was in my fifth month, I think, at that time. I was very clear that, that was the time to give, especially to my son, because,
How was he?
He was just 4.5, right? And so this is the time I must invest in him because, once a new child arrives, you're also very busy with the new child, right? So it's really, you have to have self-belief, right? And I can say that break was also a turning point because you realize that there is so much more to life. And again, as a parent, all of us have our phases, right? We do feel as a working mother, especially, that you're not doing enough, right?
Yeah.
So that was my way of saying that, okay, I do this and I take this time out, and I really enjoyed myself in the break, right? I did what all new mothers do. And I got to spend more time with my son, which was also nice. So it was great. It was very precious, and it remains a very cherished memory for me. So
right,
I thoroughly enjoyed my break. I have to say that. Absolutely. And it was when I was getting back, that time also I remember still that it was 18 months, and okay, now it's 18 months. It's a good break, right? Why don't we at least start looking out and looking at opportunities? So that's when I moved to my next role. Yeah.
Did you get restless ever? Like, I need to be doing something. I need to be getting back.
Not too much. I think I was actually enjoying my break too much.
Okay.
I didn't get restless. I didn't. And then I think it's just in my mind, I had this number, right? I said, it's 18.
Oh, you had put an 18 month.
I had it. I had it.
You had.
In my mind, I thought, it'll be whatever. I do 14, 16 months. I hadn't put in any number.
Okay.
But then when I evaluated, I said, it's 18 months. Okay, let's at least see what you are getting at.
The world at this point.
But it's good to let your hair down and take breaks. I think it's good.
Yeah.
It reorients you.
And we don't need to fear it.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, all of us deserve breaks. And it's really our call. So if you have confidence in yourself and you've done so much, you must
I get what you're
definitely be kind to yourself and give yourself a break. It's good.
Yeah.
And it re-energizes you. Without a doubt, it re-energizes you. So now if you look at the corporate world, we're in a great place, right? We're very happy for women who are coming back after breaks.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think we embrace them with both hands that, yes, please join us.
Yes.
So, I mean, I was getting back in 2010 again. So it was a mixed response. But still, it's not that, you
had a decade of working. I mean, you make a very valid point on the self-confidence and the self-belief. Because you'd put in almost, 12 years by then into work and, you'd seen the growth, you'd headed a business.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot going in your way. And right at that point, you chose to take it. Very, very nice, Charu. So, one thing, Charu, that, strikes me going through your journey is that two things, in fact.
Yeah.
One is whatever you take on, you deliver. I think that clearly comes across at that. And you are able to consistently demonstrate growth, even in a net ambit situation or in an alliance partner situation. You are able to make the transitions. What do you attribute that to a career aspirant if you have to, describe it?
I think it's again multiple factors, Vilasini, right? Now, you have to first and foremost understand the place well, right? And the key levers. And growth is important because if you're performing as a professional, you feel very good.
Yeah.
And you really know that you're on the right path, because the good news is that no matter which function you're in, if you're performing, you know it's all tangible, right?
Right.
So the first and foremost thing is to understand the key levers and understand your role in it. Then you will have to really stay focused and work on it. I think a lot of times what happens is people do get defocused. And every day you will have big and small challenges, right? You will have you will need to have the will to last it out. Tenacity and grit are very important, I feel. Right? You have to stick with it. And you have to persevere. Nothing is very easy, but the good news is nothing is very tough either.
Now it passes.
It passes, and having a positive mindset. Also, it's not all hunky-dory. There will be environmental changes, there will be internal changes, but you have to really keep your eye on the goal. Whatever your goal is, right? I mean, as people, we all have our own personal goals, we have our professional goals, right?
Right.
It's exactly what you put into your personal that you should put into your professional, because if you're really in a profession, you should also love what you're doing. If you have that level of passion, you will always show up to do that work with a lot of energy. So it's a mix of multiple factors, and your secret sauce will be different than mine. So you have to find that for yourself, and just when you show up, you should show up as 100%.
Every single day being 100%.
Yeah. And there might be some days when you're 80, 90, right? Or maybe even a 70.
Yeah.
But then be aware and make up. because you should have that level of work ethic and seriousness when you do anything.
Right.
And I think it all comes from the fact that you really like what you're doing. That is extremely important, right? I mean, I've been in Allianz Partners now for 10 years. I love being here. And, the purpose of the company, what we do, it totally resonates with me personally also. And it's a choice that you make. So you choose well and then you stick with it. And I feel longevity is very important because it teaches you a lot. It helps you grow. And it actually enables you to create impact.
True.
For you to be able to do that, you have to spend that much time and you have to invest. It's a relationship. You have to invest.
Right. Very validly put. Especially in a generation that we live in today.
Yeah.
I think longevity as a concept also is great.
Yeah.
Charu, what is assistance services? I mean, if you can just explain that a little more.
Sure. So assistance services, it spans multiple businesses. So what that really means is that as Allianz Partners, we have a B2B2C setup. We will tie up with a B partner, and then for the C customer, we will provide services. Now, I'll give you an example that you can relate to. We are the market leaders in roadside assistance. What that means is that we will have a white label service for roadside assistance where we'll tie up with marquee brands. And if at all you have a breakdown on the road, God forbid, we will be just a phone call away. So that's what we do. That's one of the lines. If I go to travel, if you've taken a travel policy and you're traveling abroad, if at all something happens and you need to be serviced, with some of the insurers, we are tied up and we will give you a service in that country through our tremendous network that we have globally. These are some examples, right? And for insurance, what that means is that, currently in insurance, you have only those many touch points. When you add a service to insurance, we are really giving multiple touch points for the customer experience. Right. So, for example, roadside assistance is available with motor policies, right?
Yeah.
So, if you have a motor policy,
Which possibly everybody who buys a car will have.
yes, then also you can really avail of roadside assistance. Similarly, if you look at an OEM, there's a warranty for their car. With that warranty, they give a roadside assistance. So, if you have a breakdown, you can call us. So, it's really reaching out to the customer when the customer needs us. And it's always a situation where there is some anxiety, right? And you need help. So we are the ones
to handle that situation at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we run a setup where we really do this very well from a contact center perspective, last mile delivery. So we've got an entire setup that caters to these situations.
So you will have a call center setup.
Absolutely.
And then you have these 16 cities where you have
16 cities is where we have our own network, which we call company-owned, company-operated. But across the country, if I say, we will have services through thousands of providers, and we'll be present in 3,000 plus cities. So it's a large network because if I look at our scale, we assist just for roadside assistance almost 55 to 60,000 customers monthly. So it's a large scale.
Yeah.
And we really work in the high tech, high touch model.
Okay.
Which means that over time we've really automated a lot of our processes, and we've used a lot of digital tools to give the right experience to the customer. So we work very closely, of course, with our business partners to curate this. But the idea is that, if at all something has happened to your vehicle, we give you mobility immediately. We call this mobility as a service. So we've really moved to that how do we make you mobile again? And it's operationally a very large business for us in India, and of course globally we are very large in the roadside assistance space. And we've got a lot of best
As
practices.
an insurer, you're globally number one. I mean, this is number one.
Yeah.
And on the assistance services,
Assistance services also we are number one.
Okay.
Number one. And of course, Allianz Partners is a fully owned subsidiary of Allianz, right? So
yeah.
we are part of the Allianz group, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And in India, it's tremendous, right? Because all of us have become
has become it's
it's
enormous.
huge.
Yeah.
So I think it's really made life easier. And
Pardon me my ignorance here, but how many such assistance services partners would be there in India?
in India, there would be, if I count ourselves in, of course, there are at least 5 to 6 players like that.
Because I think travel and mobility is on the rise with the
yes.
new India.
Absolutely.
And this must be such a massively growing space.
Yes, it is. It is. And, I think when you look at the regulatory landscape also, that there's this very clear vision that we should have insurance for all by 2047. When you look at that, one of the ways to increase penetration in insurance is also to be able to give more value-added services, right?
Yeah.
And if I talk about travel for a minute, travel, of course, India, you just look at the numbers on travel, right? Very clearly the Indian customer is traveling a lot more. And I think we're also seeing a lot of international travel. There's domestic travel definitely, but there's international travel, and we're going to multiple new locations now. So given the rise in the Indian travel space, as well as if you look at the investments that recently all the airlines have made on aircraft, this number is only bound to grow.
And given you have a vantage view to compare, global assistance and Indian assistance, how is the delivery? Because in so many other sectors, I think our digital adoption is superior, our last mile. Even today, when you go multiple countries, you feel that Indian airports or the Indian processes are superior. So, I mean, how do you find that?
So, I think on assistance, we see that the life cycle is at different stages on various lines. If I look at roadside, definitely we have amazing digital adoption, right? And if anything, customers are becoming more and more comfortable with actually doing everything digitally. They don't always want to speak, but still, because it's an emergency situation, we are very clear that we follow the high-tech, high-touch approach. So Indians are ahead, I think, here also. And if anything, the awareness level is very high, Vilasini. So now people are aware such a service exists. So we are seeing the adoption also not only of digital tools, but even the usage for RSA has gone up, right?
Right.
And similarly for travel.
And I think it's very seamlessly integrated, Charu, a lot of these experiences. We as consumers, we would have availed of it at various points of time in our life. You don't realize that there's so much of a network, so much of a service enablement created, and like you rightly pointed out, unless this is done, your insurance penetration is not going to happen because it's so intertwined and interconnected.
Yeah.
So how do you identify these? I mean, again, it's like foresight, and you're identifying a trend, right? So how does that thought process happen? Because this is huge, the last mile.
So I think this happens again by working closely with your clients. That's one. Two, we have a very large business outside of India. So when you see how India shapes up, typically we have a large business in China. We have a huge setup in Europe. So the way the automotive markets are evolving in these countries, every market has a life cycle, so we know we're also getting there. So it's a mix of what is happening globally and what internally, as well as what is happening with your own
ecosystem.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a mix of all these. Yeah.
So Charu, you must, understanding all of what you do, you must be having a lot of, what's your employee strength in the country?
So currently it's 2,000 plus because we've got various lines that we run. And as I said, we are fully diversified. So we also have presence as a global delivery center. So we've got 700 people working there as well. And we've got around 1,300 working in other businesses. So we've got,
Okay. And you all are a great place to work.
yes, we are.
And top 100, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah. And something on the women, you're one of the best places to work for women.
We are in the top 50 as for
you're in
great
the top
places to work. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's phenomenal. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think it must be your leadership given.
It's the team again.
You consistently carry success very lightly, Charu. I have to tell you that. I think, there is a very giving streak that
You're very kind, I think.
that makes you pass it on to others because, having worked with a couple of startups, I know what an important role the MD or the CEO plays in the culture building, in the engagement, and in making a place very comfortable for people to work. So again, I'm going to try and congratulate you on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think walking the talk is very important there because as the leader, if you expect your people to be a certain kind, I think you have to walk the talk. And walking the talk takes a lot of effort. It also means that you have to make sacrifices, right? It's not as easy. So consistently walking the talk, I think, is important for culture building. And it has to definitely begin as a tone from the top, because then I think the percolation is easier.
And people see and learn more than even being told. They just imbibe from what you bring to the table. Because in my couple of hours of interaction with you, I know there are certain things that are worthy of imbibing. So So Charu, I think, let's step back a bit. We've done a lot of the sector talk.
Yeah.
So I'm going to quickly do a rapid fire just to kind of create the format.
Yes, absolutely.
On this.
Yes.
So are you a morning person or an evening person?
Evening.
Evening.
Absolutely.
Okay. Night person.
Evening and night person. I'm not a morning person.
Given some Delhi, chole bhature or aloo tikki?
Any day, chole bhature. I love chole bhature. Absolutely.
Okay.
So as it's one of my favorites. In fact, I'm almost happy that you asked about chole bhature.
Okay. Treat me to one in Delhi. Right?
Yes, that's for sure. Yes.
Audible or Kindle?
None, actually. So I don't do either Audible or Kindle. I'm still like a paperback, physical book person.
I'm a paperback person.
I mean,
I love the hardbound.
Yes. I mean, hardbound or paperback, but a book.
A book.
I don't do books on digital format at all. Yeah.
Okay. Coffee with girl pals or a quiet evening at home?
So I would love to have coffee with girl pals, but my girl pals will tell me I don't show up. So it is inevitably an evening at home.
Okay.
Maybe not very quiet, thanks to the family, but it's an evening at home for me mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Given your large ecosystem also, I think it lends itself to a lot of socializing
so in fact,
family.
Not too much, to be honest. It's very occasion specific. I think it becomes like that for all of us, right?
Yeah.
But between work and home and family, I think a lot of my time goes like that. Yeah. And I'm happy with that. It's a choice that I've made. I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah.
Lovely. The last one, is it guilt or exhaustion that kills?
Oh my God, that's a tough one. So I think it's none of them kills me. But if I were to rank the two, it is always guilt. Right?
Yeah.
Because as a parent, and especially as a mother, I don't think exhaustion has a place.
Doesn't have a place in the dictionary at all. Yeah.
But guilt pops up anytime. So it's very interesting that we sort of find reasons.
Find reasons
to have that guilt, right? And that's, I think we're all a work in progress on that part. But if I were to rank, it is always the guilt.
Does it come down? Given your boy is now 21, does it come down ever?
It does, but it never goes away. And I think that's where women have to work on themselves. I don't think it goes away. I don't know about the men. But I think it doesn't fully go away. You still feel you could have done that better.
Could have done that better. You could have done something.
Right? You always
Yeah,
feel that way.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that the kids don't feel that way. The kids are good, right? They're saying that, listen, you do your stuff.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of support from my husband, but also from my kids, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all as a family unit.
Yeah.
You have to click as a family unit. It becomes really important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, there you have to find ways to prop each other.
Independent. They like to see their mothers in a particular way. I think all that builds very
I think over time they tell you that, listen, you don't judge yourself.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Now the tables slowly start to turn.
And it's very interesting when your kids tell you that, listen, you're fine. And you're almost thinking, okay, that's interesting. You're hearing this from the kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think women need to do a lot more of that for each other.
Yeah.
We do a lot already, but we can do more. Just
easing out the pressures from each other's minds. I mean,
and just being kind and nice to themselves first and to each other.
Yeah,
because there's so much that women can do.
Absolutely.
And making each other comfortable has to be an important one.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Excellent. From a challenges standpoint, Charu, the last 27 years of working, what has been the most challenging part?
I think the most challenging part always is how do you balance work and life, right? And it's never easy. So in your mind, you have to be clear of what you want to prioritize when. I think that's the most important, right? That's where this whole less or more guilt also stems from. So I think that is the challenge, that where do you really give your time? Because you want to succeed in both. And your definition of success changes with time, right?
Yeah.
But you still want to, you don't want to let go, right?
Yeah.
You want to still hold on and do whatever's the best you can do. So I think that is a challenge. And over time, I'm still not the best at prioritization. Okay, I'm still working on it, right? But I really go with the flow mostly. And I try to then sort of, if I then try and make up. And it's never easy. So there's no easy answer of how you find this harmony. But I think you have to most importantly love what you do to give it the kind of time you want to give. Right? And you'll have to prioritize at times, right? So that's why I'm very happy I took the break when I took it. That was me prioritizing my family over work, and I was very happy. In hindsight, I feel it was really good. But on a day-to-day basis, I think more and more
the pants. You have the...
I not anymore, maybe, because the kids are older, right? So you don't sort of feel that way. And as I said, they also support you.
Yeah.
But I think over the years, you learn how to navigate it. And everyone finds their own rhythm.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for you to find your own. You shouldn't go by what other people are saying. Find your own peace. And your peace might be that you don't have to be a perfectionist at everything, right?
Absolutely.
You want to seek perfection only in certain bits and pieces. And for the rest of it, you're okay to be average also. So I think every woman, even every man, should find that space for themselves. Women more, because I think women are harder on themselves.
Very hard on them.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think I've been able to navigate them better over the years. And there will of course be moments where you think you could have done more. But I think I'm with time, as you age, as you see, I think a variety of challenges, right? How to deal with it.
Yeah.
So,
and how do you deal with it, Charu? I mean, is it like a one night sleep? You have a bad day, you sleep it through, you come back, and
I mostly talk it through.
So you talk it.
Yeah, I talk it through.
Okay.
I talk it through. So I typically I do speak my mind. So if something is bothering me, personally or professionally, I would talk it out. I think it's extremely important. right? And this I'm saying for both women and men.
Yeah.
That is, there's something that
A lot of things are gender agnostic, or
Yeah.
actually.
you know, if it's bothering you, you should speak about it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in today's world, nobody else knows what's going inside of you.
Yeah.
Only you know it.
Yeah.
So if something's bothering you, give it a voice. And it's important because once you share it with somebody, and that could be anybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But once you voice it out,
It becomes lighter.
it becomes lighter. Also, you get some closure.
And some clarity. I mean, many times I have seen that when I'm talking, I'm getting the clarity. It didn't come
Exactly.
from the
You are so right.
from the person
Absolutely.
listening.
You're very right.
Yeah.
When you articulate, you yourself get clarity that wasn't even worth it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's important, I think, to give it a voice.
give it a
because, you know, you see today, you know, mental health is a real challenge.
Yeah.
And some of that is maybe because of so much of our time going in not real conversations, but in digital stuff, right? And we're all guilty of that. We all do a lot of digital.
Yeah.
So if something is bothering you, you have to give it a voice. Otherwise, it's just sitting inside of you getting suppressed. So yeah, I talk it out. And it's
Very
not pleasant for everyone,
Very-
but I talk it out.
Very nice. Very nice. I do it too. So, you know, that's a plus one there. Yeah. So you have faced discrimination at any level, Charu? Anything at all? Because again, we're all very privileged. You know, we've had great bosses.
Yeah.
We've had, you know, we've always been at places that have encouraged and set us up.
I have to think about that one, right? I am sure in the early years there would have been some, but from an organization perspective, if I were to say, I've been super lucky, right? And there would have been instances where you feel, right? Because 27 years is a very long time. And this could be in the external space also, you know? And I think in the initial years, you might be a bit conscious about it. If I jog my memory, I think internally I've again been very privileged and lucky. Externally, when you're in the external world, there will be a little bit because, you know, as a woman, if you're out there doing a hardcore sales job, when you're just in a pure market setting, right? And there was a pure market setting. It will not be discrimination, but you will know that you have to conduct yourself in a certain way. Right? And you yourself get that cue. So you can call it whatever, but that does exist, right? And
How did you fight it? I mean, I get it. It's very subtle.
It's subtle.
Very subtle.
Yeah. I think you fight it by facing it. You don't have to call it out. You just have to face it, right? And
showing up, they say in these days. That's the term.
Showing up, right? Showing up, and I think slowly it goes away, right? The subtle pieces also go away slowly. So I think it's self-belief again. Your self-belief helps you handle it well in a way that it doesn't impact you. You know, you keep doing what you do irrespective of what's happening in the external environment. And the second one is to build a very strong ecosystem and support system along with you. And that is, you know, in your workplace, in that external environment, slowly you need to have a ecosystem. Because definitely you will find it there. Women face it even today. And I think we're just stronger in terms of finding our own support mechanism, and we are able to fight back now.
Have you seen instances of people giving up along the way because of the subtle discriminations that exist?
I have seen people giving up, maybe not because of subtle discrimination, but because of, you know, their priorities not being their own. Right? I've seen that. I've seen women maybe who step back, you know, when they have a family. So we've seen some of that, right? And that continues to happen. Though I still think that the diversity agenda is so strong today
That it's changing.
it's changed. It's changed a lot,
Yeah.
and it's much better. But we still have more distance to go. So I see that happen even today. So I think, yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you, why do women not intrinsically pick up a field sales or a sales job.
That's a good one. So maybe comfort level is not very high, right? But it's a good one. I think it should
Because when I
definitely.
see you, I feel like, why didn't I do it? Why didn't I go? I would have loved it, like traveling across the country, but that wasn't a natural choice that I made.
Yeah, so I think there was this, especially when we were, I mean, at least I was growing up, there was this whole stigma, right? That would you want to really do field sales, right? And maybe some of us weren't even thinking in those lines, and we are happy that yes, we want to give it a shot, right? So I think there's a lot of overthinking on what people want to do today. Okay, that's one. And you feel too many options. Also, maybe they feel that the learning isn't there. And nothing could be further from the truth, because there is a lot of learning just because of the people interaction.
I think what it makes you as a person, it just molds you entirely into a different person, and you carry it for life. Like, many times I think what we do in the first 18 months, first 24 months is what we carry pretty much for the 27 years or the 30 years.
It gives you a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Right? And then that whole thing that you're starting a new job and you're becoming a different person. A lot of that shaping of your professional profile, if I may call it that, or the professional persona you will be, happens in the early years also, right? You don't experiment at that time. You don't take risk. You'll never know if it was worth it or not.
Right.
And it's just important for, I think, the sheer humbling also. Because it takes you out of the comfort zone, right?
Absolutely.
And I think I hope more women do take to sales jobs also. I think they're very savvy sales jobs these days. They don't have to always go to the field.
Yeah. And in today's times, I think, it's both man and woman. Nobody wants to do a hardcore field sales job sometimes.
Yeah.
Any safety concerns that ever came up in, or is that one of the reasons why one should continue to be careful?
There were definitely safety concerns, and that is where your awareness is very important. I mean, when in some of these roles, there will be safety concerns, and as a woman, you have to be conscious. And you have to be very strong that you don't expose yourself to that. If you once know this is a risk, you don't repeat that. And you call it out. Because see, if it's a job, organizations really care. They really care for employee well-being.
Yeah.
And that's really developed into a huge deliverable at an organizational level.
Absolutely.
All orgs are saying, listen, we care for our employees.
And that's actually existed across the years.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, there was the care.
There was huge care,
There
right?
didn't be the concern at all. The only thing we need to be aware.
We need to be aware, and then we need to, and if at all there's something that you think is not okay. I mean, when I was with Arpit or Perfetti also, very caring organizations, right? And obviously, same for City and Allianz, of course, we're very caring. If at all you think you're getting exposed or this could be a risk, you have to call it out and step back. So your own personal awareness as a generation, I think, right?
Yeah.
It is so important to ensure your own well-being. So I think that part is in our hands. And women's safety, of course, is an issue generally if you talk about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Charu, when do you bond with the kids these days?
That's a good question. So with the kids, my daughter is 16, my son is 20. He's going to be 21 in Jan. So he's not looking for much bonding with me anyway. But my daughter is still happy to bond. So I think as a family, we bond when we're going for holidays. We love to travel as a family. So that
was your last holiday destination?
Which was our last holiday destination. That is a good one. I'm just trying to remember where we went this summer. Okay, we went to Austria.
Oh, nice.
So we went to Vienna for a week. And of course, from there, we traveled to other parts of Austria. It was beautiful. And good bonding with family. So
you'll do an annual holiday.
We do annual holiday. We also try and do some 2-3 day getaways, but not as often as we should. The other ways we bond is, especially with my daughter, we find some both of us find these Netflix series to watch.
Oh, nice.
So there are one or two which are our favorites, and we want like that. Or we have some
With a 16-year-old, I presume shopping or
exactly. I'm really gonna say that shopping. I am still part of it. I am still part of it. Thank God.
okay.
So yeah, some little shopping escapades, but
Yeah, Delhi must be such a great place to shop.
it is a great place to shop. And yeah, I think with teens, it's good fun because they're happy now going back to the malls, right? So that's how I end up wanting maybe a little bit of a sport with my son once in a while,
Okay.
but not too much. Just one or two games, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Nice. And now must be a video call because he's in Bombay and you're in. Delhi.
Yes, but he's just moved to Bombay, so whenever he comes home, we catch up like that. But yeah,
Right. So Charu, what role did ambition play in your career?
that's a good one. So I was ever overtly ambitious, right? So I'm not the kind of person who said at age 25 that at 35 I want to be this, at 45 I want to be this. So I didn't set an ambition for myself like that, but I've been extremely focused, right?
So when you get there, you have to play it to 100%.
Yeah. I mean, many
That's
times
what
you have
you
to
are.
play above 100%.
Above.
Right, because you learn during the journey that 100% might not be enough, and to give that 100% and more is a huge ask. So it does take a toll on your time. That's why I said you have to love what you do, otherwise you can't give it that 100% plus. So that said, I do encourage women who work with me to be ambitious. Because if I didn't plan it for myself, it doesn't mean other people shouldn't, right? For women, it's very important to be ambitious, right? Because we see that if I compare women and men at the workplace, right? Women who are 80% there and men who are 80% there, the men will definitely say a yes. The women will still think I'm 80%. So I think that to that extent, in your mind, you have to have that thing that, if this comes to me, I can deliver. So not having a pure ambition, it works for some people. But then you have to compensate it with a huge level of focus and resilience. Those two are really important, I think.
Let's take both the instances, like not having a very, milestone sort of an ambition, but taking it as it comes. How does that play out? Like, do roles just come by? Does life happen in a manner that it should just align?
Not always, right? Once in a while, it might happen like that. So I think there are multiple nuances there. Once in a while, you will excel in a role, and then you are set up for the next role, right? But then you will have to consciously excel in that role, right? And you will have to, again, as you said earlier, show up and raise your hand for initiatives.
Okay, let's try this again, Charu. But where does that seed to excel come from? Because you have consistently proven that in your track record, and you continue to do so. But so there's something there. I mean, if it's fire, it's or it's just commitment that I've taken up a job, I have to do my 100% to it.
Yeah. And I think it's a mix. It's a mix. But the commitment is very important for me personally. That if you're promising or committing something, you must deliver on it. Right? And what happens is that over time, you're a certain kind of a person, right? So if I'm given a task, I will do my best to finish it in the desired manner. Where does that seed come from? I think over time it becomes a habit. And
you don't know any other way.
Also, it's motivation, right? Everyone has motivation. A motivator for me is if you're performing, that is motivation enough.
Yeah.
And if you really want the next step, you should have anyway been performing.
Right.
So for me, somewhere I think, and it's different for everyone, right?
Yeah.
It's just a natural step that if you want to really get ahead, you will have to perform. And it applies the other way, right? That if you cannot get ahead without performing, right? So
Yeah.
they're so intertwined.
So you don't necessarily need to have goalposts, but you need to be motivated to do what you are meant to do.
Yes.
And
more will come your way.
and more
You have to have that faith and positivity that if you're doing the right thing, you will get the result. And I think somewhere I'm aligned to the philosophy where it's, the famous philosophy which says that you do your karma and the right things will happen.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we cannot decide what the outcome is going to be.
Right.
And but you have to keep at it.
Right.
And I use this very often in my life, right? Because there are so many variables.
Right.
And if we really think at any point in time that we can control the outcome, the truth is we can't.
Yeah.
So what do? You work hard, you do the right thing. Because see, in such a long journey, there are moments when people can get distracted and not do the right thing. So I think staying on that one path, whatever is your North Star, is very important. It could be just doing the right thing always. And it's not that you'll get rewarded for doing the right thing always. But if that's what you believe in, you do it and you will finally get a result. So I think longevity also comes in here. You got to have patience. That is extremely important. And it's the hallmark of anybody who wants to succeed. If you think everything is going to happen overnight, I think it's difficult.
Right.
And
Right. Great points. So what's your personal day? How does your day start and end? What's your personal mantra?
What's my personal mantra? So my day starts with at least thrice a week I do yoga. So that's the only form of exercise I do. And I do it thrice a week. I should do it more, but that's how I start. But other than that, after my daughter's in school, once she's gone to school and I leave for office, and mostly at office, either I'm inside the office or traveling or having meetings, right? So post that, when I'm back home, I do get family time in the evening. But the commute has become very long. So by the time I get home, you don't have that longer window, right?
Right.
So I get a little bit of time on the weekdays, but whatever bonding we end up doing is largely on the weekends, to be honest, because everyone's so busy on weekdays, right?
Right.
And my typical day is busy. The one thing that I look forward to, I pick up some series or the other. So these days it's Modern Family. So I have a 25-minute of Modern Family. If I'm able to manage that, I think I feel very happy. So I think I'm very low maintenance.
Right.
So I'm happy with that. And most days are long, but I think I've gotten used to them. So it works for me.
And anything on this religion, spirituality, anything at all? That space?
I mean, not too much. I mean, I'm not. I think I'm more inclined towards spirituality than religion. But I think I'm a novice in spirituality also, to be honest. So my personal belief is that God is inside each one of us, and I of course love to celebrate our festivals and the rituals that go with it. But
I think that's becoming now an increasing trend in the country.
Oh yes, it is.
Every festival these days is celebrated.
Yeah, so I'm still celebrating very few. I have to say that to you. I'm not celebrating all. I've got a select few that I celebrate, to be honest, right? And I'm happy with that. So I don't sort of do a lot of
Right.
A lot of festivals. It's just a handful, and we've been like that as a family.
That's quite beautiful. And Charu, what is your message for women aspirants, career aspirants across age groups? Today, in today's perspective, we've touched upon it 2-3 times.
Sure.
That there's a changing face.
Yeah. So I think the first one is, of course, believe in yourself. I think that is extremely important. Women can, we've got so many bright women. And women have broken not only the glass ceiling, but they've gone into so many new areas of work life, and they've achieved so much. So self-belief, I think, is extremely important. The second one I will say is have a great support system for yourself, and don't shy away from it. You have nothing to prove that as a woman I will do it by myself. There's simply no need. So be kind to yourself and get yourself a good support system, because we forget that somewhere along the way, especially when women go through multiple phases, right? They so quickly adjust to the new phase.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where the ambition piece is important, because when they adjust to a new phase, they just forget that, they had the same education. So they can be as ambitious. So I think that's the second one, that get yourself a good support system and choose your partner well. That's important. Somebody who will support you as well. I have been very fortunate in that regard. I get a lot of support from Rajesh. The third one I will say is don't judge yourself. Because as women, I think we judge ourselves too much even now.
Intrinsically, it's just there in the DNA.
It's there.
Yeah.
And it's something we should learn from the younger generation.
They judge less. Actually, I have a boy.
Yeah. They judge much less.
Okay.
Much less.
Okay.
And they actually vocalize it, that please don't judge yourself.
Oh.
So I learned that one from my daughter.
Okay.
So that's the third one. That don't judge yourselves. Embrace yourself the way you are. And that will help you have self-belief also. So that takes you places, I think, if you embrace yourself first.
Yeah. I think the self-comfort, where we are is enough. What we are is enough.
Yes.
Is such an important thing.
Correct.
Great points, Charu. Thank you so much. And finally, today, what makes you look at a Monday morning? And how has it changed from 1996? What makes you get up and get ready on a Monday morning?
That's a very good question. I mean, it's not changed too much, actually. I still have,
Do you have the blues, or you're like...
I don't have Monday morning. Those I'm actually...
Yeah, you've told me multiple times you love your job and you love...
I look forward to my Mondays. The only thing that worries me is the traffic. I have to tell you, Monday traffic is
my worst. Traffic blues, yeah.
It's like the worst.
Yeah.
But from a workplace perspective, no, I'm happy to go in on a Monday. What wakes me up is, again, meeting up with the team. Monday is a day when we have so we do have a hybrid, but Monday you have a lot of team members in office. Other than that, whatever's pending, whatever is still not done, and it's top priority. So I think it's very intrinsic, right? You have to like what you're doing, and then you look forward to your Mondays. So I'm a Monday morning person.
And are you a creature of process, or a rhythm, that you like it to go in certain ways?
Yes and no. Some things in a rhythm, but not everything in a rhythm, I think.
Okay.
So there are some things which are sacrosanct, but it's not that I would put a rhythm at least to the entire day. You'll have your calendar, all of that. But if something is thrown at me, it's not that I'll be completely off guard. I'll be okay.
Yeah. I mean, on a professional space, I'm reasonably sure.
Personally, you say if I'm a process person.
Yeah.
I don't think, other than 2-3 areas, I go by a process.
Okay.
Some places I go by a process, but otherwise I'm pretty okay.
So finally, what's your secret sauce?
Oh, there is no secret sauce, I think. Each person has his own secret or her own secret, right? I think it's a very tough one, Zilasini. You kept the toughest one for the end, right?
No, but I see you and I feel
You can see the secret sauce, is it?
I can't see the secret sauce because it needs to come from you, but I can see so many of those qualities that would have taken you to where you are today. I think intrinsically you carry it. So
So I don't know if I can articulate it, but I can try, because I think it's a mix of multiple things. It's maybe not taking yourself too seriously all the time, being humble, that's very important, and tenacious. I think those things are very important for me, personally and professionally, because you're not two separate people, right?
Yeah.
You're really the same one person who's going to work and who's coming back home.
Yeah.
So you don't like switch on, switch off. I think maybe these three qualities. Yeah.
Great. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. My pleasure, will actually.
Thank you so much for giving us the
Thank
time.
you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us in that episode with Charu Kaushal. From humble beginnings to becoming a leader in the insurance sector industry, her story shows us the power of showing up, staying authentic, giving 110% to the goal at hand, and where it can take us both in career and in life. At We Women Project, we believe in bringing to you stories that are honest and relatable. If this one stayed with you, please do like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back with another voice, another story. Until then, take care, keep going, one step at a time. This is your host, Vilasni, signing off. Thank you.